Imagine you're at that point in the day when everything feels kind of stuck, scrolling through your feed, expecting just another recycled offseason news, a busted rumor, those articles that say a lot but deliver little. Then, out of nowhere, a trade proposal appears, one of those nobody asked for, nobody expected, but that strangely makes sense. It's not explosive. It doesn't involve a superstar. It won't stop Sportsnet. But there's something there, a subtle fit, a strategic silence. The trade suggested by a portal like Heavy.com, which usually flies under the fans' radar, might actually be the game changer the Maple Leafs were looking for. And for a very simple reason. It solves two problems at once. And that, my friend, is rare. The Toronto Maple Leafs are going through a delicate offseason. One of those where any wrong move can jeopardize not only the immediate present, but an entire long-term construction. Brad Treliving has taken on the responsibility to lead a surgical overhaul, seeking balance between aggressiveness, economy, and identity. And in the midst of all this, two headaches emerge. The tight salary cap, which practically locks down any bold moves, and Nick Robertson's contract situation, a young talented forward, but surrounded by doubts, injuries, and an arbitration hearing looming. Solving one of those would already be a cause for celebration. Solving both at once, in a single trade, borders on genius, if well executed. And that is precisely the heart of the proposal. Sending Calle, Jarnkrok, and Robertson's rights to the San Jose Sharks, in exchange for Mario Ferraro, a 26-year-old left-handed defenseman who, despite still being in his prime years, might be becoming expendable in a franchise clearly in rebuild mode. For Toronto, the move offers something rarer than talent, relief, clarity, and a real chance to turn their weaknesses into strengths. It's not a flashy trade, but it's one of those that winning teams make. Quiet, functional, strategic, the kind that slips past on Twitter but explodes in impact come April. Let's start with the basics. Mario Ferraro, now 26, is a defenseman who has experienced the bitter side of the NHL. Playing on a constantly rebuilding team, playing at a high level, Ferraro became more than just a represents a short-term. He became a symbol of resilience, an alternate captain for the Sharks. He's the type of player who stands out not by numbers, but by effort, attitude, the way he approaches every shift. He blocks shots as if they were goals, competes as if every game were his last, physical, intense, and perhaps most importantly, reliable. And in Toronto, where the playoffs have been a constant ordeal, that kind of player makes a difference. His current contract, $3.25 million through 2026, is completely manageable within the current context, especially considering what he delivers defensively. But to fit him under the cap, Toronto needs to clear space. That's where Calle Jarnkrok comes in, one of the most useful players on the roster. At 32, he can play on any line, helps kill penalties, has high hockey IQ, finishes decently, and is responsible. Coaches love having a Jarnkrok, but maybe they love even more having cap space to maneuver. With the arrival of offensive reinforcements like Dylan Gambrell and Tyler Bertuzzi, and the rise of young players like Matthew Knies and possibly Easton Cowan, Jarnkrok's base has shrunk. And when that happens, a useful player becomes trade bait. Plain and simple. And then we get to Nick Robertson. This is a real dilemma. A talent Toronto doesn't want to give up, but maybe has to. Drafted as a big prospect, Robertson was sabotaged by injuries over 3 seasons. Only now, in 2024-25, did he have a more stable run and showed flashes of what he can be. He's agile, has a good shot, reads the ice well, and is still young. But he's on the brink of arbitration, forcing Toronto to decide. Re-sign him to a value that might not fit the budget, or risk losing him for nothing in the future. Including him in the trade passes his problem to San Jose, who, in turn, has cap space, time, patience, and plenty of minutes to give Robertson. A new start, a new jersey, a real chance to restart without the weight of expectation. But let's pause for a moment and ask a sincere question. Why exactly would San Jose give up Ferraro? It's simple. Because maybe he's no longer as central as he once was. The Sharks added 3 defensemen in the offseason. They are clearly reshaping the identity of their defense. And according to David Pagnotta, although Ferraro has requested a trade, he's open to a change of scenery. A subtle but revealing clue. Also, as reported by Max Miller and Pierre LeBrun, there's a market for him. Colorado, Tampa Bay, Winnipeg, and Calgary have all checked on his name in the past. He's no ordinary player. He's a valuable asset. And for that reason, San Jose might be considering trading him now, before his value erodes on a rebuilding team. For Toronto, Ferraro's arrival would be a relief on several fronts. On the ice, he fills a structural gap on the left side of defense. He can pair with McCabe, or even with Liljegren, depending on rotations. He's a player who can handle heavy minutes, deals well with top opposing lines, and brings competitive energy the Leafs have been seeking in recent years. And that's rarer than it seems. It's no use loading up the team with stars and leaving the back end vulnerable. The Leafs know that. They've learned it the hard way. And, of course, the financial element can't be ignored. The trade equation makes sense. Ferraro $3.25M comes in Jarnkrok $2.1M, goes out Robertson, likely $1.5M too. It's almost a swap of values, but with more future control and less uncertainty. Toronto spends a bit more, but gains predictability. And that word, on a team that needs to win now, is worth its weight in gold. On the other side, San Jose gets two assets who can help today and tomorrow. Jarnkrok is the type of player who helps develop young talent. Consistent, experienced, unselfish. And Robertson is the kind of project rebuilding teams love. High risk, high reward. If it works out, the Sharks will have a 20-plus goal winger in the coming years on control contract. If it doesn't, they lose a player who is no longer part of their core future plans. Now, returning to the human factor, what if we look beyond the numbers? Ferraro, despite playing on a recently unsuccessful team, has built a solid reputation in NHL locker rooms. He's a natural leader, respected by teammates, competitive to the last minute. In Toronto, this type of presence could be the antidote to years of silent playoff frustrations. Guys like him don't shine on the power play, but hold the line when the game gets ugly. Robertson, despite his turbulent path, remains like within the group, including for his commitment. Letting him go wouldn't be easy. But again, sometimes the best thing you can do for a player is let him go. Timing also favors this move. Robertson's arbitration hearing is scheduled for August 3rd. Time is against Toronto. Any decision needs to be made before then, or the team risks being forced to accept a contract that doesn't fit its plans. In other words, the time is now. And this proposal, though still just an idea, could be the best realistic alternative available. In terms of roster impact, the trade would have immediate consequences. Knies and Cowan would gain minutes. The defense would become more solid. And, more importantly, the team would start the season closer to what it needs to face tough playoff series. Toronto has already seen what happens when it bets only on offensive talent. It's time to balance the ship. Ferraro might not be a star, but he's exactly the kind of reinforcement championship teams add when they realize talent alone doesn't solve everything. In the medium term, this trade could be the first step in a new cycle for the Leafs. A cycle that values consistency, identity, defense, and perhaps gives more space to the youngsters who are ready to step up. And for the Sharks, it could represent a new narrative, giving Nick Robertson the starring role he never had in Toronto. A fresh start away from pressure, where he can develop his game without carrying the burden of saving an entire franchise. Of course, all of this depends on execution. The proposal needs to be well handled. There must be transparency with the players, good sense in negotiations, and, above all, strategic vision. But if Brad Treliving sees potential in this move as a pragmatic answer to real problems, he might be about to make one of the most discreet and yet impactful decisions of his tenure. So, Leafs fan, now that you know everything, tell me, would you make this trade? Would you give up Jarnkrok and Robertson for Ferraro? Or would you hold on to the young forward for another year, risking missing his valuation window? Do you believe Ferraro is the type of player who changes a team's defensive behavior? Or do you think aiming higher would be better? Comment below, because this is the kind of trade only time will judge. But the debate has already started. And if you enjoyed this long and detailed analysis, leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell, because upcoming videos will keep diving into this line of quiet but decisive trades. There's more hot Leafs rumors coming your way, and you won't want to miss it. See you next time. Thanks.